Now, when you configure Wildfly in the way that we recommend, you will realize that there are some settings that are slightly different from Tomcat. And I want to use this as the opportunity to go into the reason why you might want to have a full application server rather than just Tomcat, which is quick to set up but has some drawbacks, even though it's very popular. First of all, in an application server, you typically don't configure configurations to the database just like you do with Liferay's internal configuration. That's the standard that you get when you start the setup wizard. Then the configuration that you get in your properties file, portal properties, we'll talk about the actual configuration file in the next chapter, is this one: JDBC, default driver class name, default URL, default username, and password. Now we're in a system administration or DevOps course. There's the password here in clear text, which means somewhere in the back of my head, I hear somebody saying, problem. Now this is the standard configuration that the setup wizard just introduces here. There is another setup that you can do, which is just giving the JNDI name. And JNDI, the Java, is that native directory index? Editorial question, JNDI is Java N directory interface?
Java naming and directory interface.
Naming and directory, that is, yeah. Okay. Now, if you configure the JDBC default JNDI name, Java naming and directory interface name, then you will just point to a configuration that the application server provides to you. And it's the application server's task to store the username, the password somewhere, instead of this portal properties file or portal X properties file. You find it somewhere within the internals of the application server. Now, I can't tell you if that is encrypted or not. If you don't need to enter a password, it's not properly encrypted anyways. But it's somewhere in the application server, and it's no longer Liferay's task. So I can't really tell you if your application server or if Tomcat stores your password in clear text somewhere, or if it doesn't. But at least we can claim Liferay doesn't. So Liferay does not depend on passwords to be on the disk in clear text. If the application servers do, well, that's their own fault. Kind of. It's kind of a nice way for us to say, well, that's ours, but if you're running an application server like that, you're running that anyways for every other application that you're running on top of it. So you have made that concession already. You'll also see there's a mail session JNDI name, and what we'll do in this chapter is we'll also configure a mail server for Liferay, because at a bare minimum, if you create a new account, you get an email with the confirmation, here's your password, welcome, thank you for creating a new account. And if you set a new password, if you forget your password and you want to reset it, if Liferay allows that, and by default it does, it can send you a password reset link. Now, in this course, we're not configuring an actual mail server, but we're creating a new Docker image with a tiny little component named fake SMTP. It's 2018, we all know what a fake is. In this case, it's obvious. This is an SMTP server that listens to the SMTP port, so it listens to mail, claims to handle them correctly, and just dumps them to its log file. So it's not sending out any spam anywhere in the world. You don't need to configure anything, no passwords, no nothing. It's all handled locally and nothing ever leaves your local system. So this is our way to just tell you this is a nice way to configure an SMTP server. And of course, in the real world, in a real server, you actually want to connect it to a meaningful SMTP server. Once you have these, you will see the difference between Tomcat that we have configured is Tomcat is configured with these 4 settings, including the clear text password in the portal properties file, and Wildfly will be configured with the JNDI settings. So when you run when you run Wildfly, the next options or the next task for you in this exercise is just to go into Portal X properties again, configure the actual connection to the database in there as JNDI, upload standalone XML where we configure where that connection goes to, some Wildfly dependencies updated, and rebuild the service, test the outgoing mail. Oh, the outgoing dependencies, the dependencies in there, I believe, if I remember correctly, they're the mail dependencies, so that we can send out mail. Not 100% sure anymore, but this is what you'll find. And another disclaimer, as I told you, now we're using the full-blown application server, so we're making this a more professional setup. We're using HSQL here to make it simple for you guys. So we're not actually connecting to a proper database, but we're setting up Wildfly server with an HSQL database. HSQL is awesome. It's an in-memory database, and you can use it for any kind of demo system, but please don't use it in production. So we explicitly configure a connection that goes to HSQL, but feel free to configure it to go to any other installation as well. If you're done early, bonus, make Wildfly connect to the MySQL installation. You have all of the patterns there in the Tomcat Docker file, Tomcat directory in the Tomcat part of it, so you can easily just connect to the same MySQL database going to the same volume that you are using in Tomcat. Okay, that is the 2-step Wildfly exercise. And with that, I would like to say, ready, set, go.